Celia has outgrown you. Make the divorce easy, or the IRS might get curious about your cash jobs.
So you're blackmailing me?
The divorce papers were supposed to arrive next Tuesday. Instead, I found my wife's sister living in our guest room with her 3 kids and a boyfriend I'd never met, eating cereal from our good china while my coffee maker gurgled its last drops into someone else's mug. "Morning, Dave," Celia called from the kitchen, not looking up from her phone. My wife of 12 years had this new habit of treating me like a roommate she barely tolerated. Lisa needed a place to crash for a few weeks. Lisa. Celia's younger sister, the one who'd burned through 2 marriages and 3 business ventures before turning 30. She sat at my kitchen table in a silk robe that probably cost more than my monthly truck payment, scrolling through her phone while her kids destroyed my living room, and her boyfriend, a guy with neck tattoos and designer sneakers, raided my refrigerator. Few weeks? I poured coffee into a chipped mug, the good ones apparently reserved for our unexpected guests. "Since when?" "Since yesterday. You were at the job site." Celia finally looked up, her expression daring me to argue. "It's temporary, Dave. Family helps family." Right. Family. The same family that had never once asked how my contracting business was doing, never remembered my birthday, and somehow always needed money right before holidays. But now they needed a place to stay, and suddenly I was family again. "Daddy, can we get a pool?" Lisa's 8-year-old daughter bounced into the kitchen, syrup somehow already staining her pajamas, despite it being barely 7 in the morning. "Ask your mom, sweetheart. This isn't my house to make those decisions anymore, apparently." Celia shot me a warning look. "Don't be dramatic. Dramatic." That was her new favorite word for any time I expressed an opinion about my own life. Want to know why there are strangers living in my house? Dramatic. Ask why my wife comes home at midnight smelling like expensive cologne that isn't mine? Dramatic. Wonder why my marriage feels like I'm the only one still trying? Apparently, that's the most dramatic thing of all. I grabbed my thermos and work jacket. "I'll be at the Patterson job. Try not to redecorate while I'm gone." "Dave." Celia's voice softened, the way it used to when we were dating. "We'll talk tonight, okay? Just give Lisa some time to get back on her feet." I wanted to ask what happened to her feet in the first place, but Lisa's boyfriend chose that moment to emerge from my bathroom, toweling off his hair with my good towels. "Shower's got great pressure, man. Thanks for the hospitality." I'd never seen this guy before in my life. He was using my shower, my towels, drinking my coffee, and calling me man like we were old buddies. The urge to grab him by his freshly washed neck was almost overwhelming. "No problem," I managed. "Just remember, mi casa es su casa, apparently." Outside, Mrs. Patterson from across the street was already positioned at her front window with her morning coffee, watching the drama unfold. She'd been our neighbor for 8 years, and I swear she had a 6th sense for domestic disputes. She waved when she saw me looking, probably already composing the neighborhood group text about the strangers' cars in my driveway. My F-150 started on the 3rd try, which was better than usual. At least something in my life was reliable. I backed out of my own driveway, navigating around Lisa's BMW and her boyfriend's lifted Dodge Ram. Both vehicles worth more than my annual income, both parked like their owners owned the place. The Patterson renovation was going well, which was more than I could say for anything else in my life. Jim Patterson had hired me to gut his kitchen after his wife decided she needed more entertaining space. Ironic, considering I was apparently entertaining half of Celia's family tree without being consulted. "Morning, Dave." Jim handed me a coffee from the good place downtown. "You look like you need this." "That obvious?" "My wife's sister stayed with us for 2 weeks last year. I aged a decade." Jim laughed, but his eyes were sympathetic. "In-laws are like fish. They start to stink after 3 days." If only it were just the in-laws. I'd noticed things changing with Celia months ago. Late nights at the real estate office, new clothes, a sudden interest in the gym, and expensive skincare products. The kind of changes that usually meant one of 2 things: midlife crisis or someone else. I'd been hoping for midlife crisis. My phone buzzed. Text from Celia. Forgot to mention, having dinner with the girls tonight. Don't wait up. The girls. Right. Celia's work friends, who'd never once invited me to their group dinners or weekend trips. I used to think it was because I didn't fit in with their crowd, real estate agents and mortgage brokers who wore suits to Casual Friday and talked about market trends over cocktails. Now I wondered if there was a different reason I wasn't welcome. Another text, this one from my buddy Mike. Poker night Friday? Jenny's making her famous chili. At least some things stayed normal. Mike and I had been friends since high school, back when life was simpler, and the biggest drama was who was dating who and whether the football team would make playoffs. His wife Jenny was one of the few people who still treated me like a human being instead of an inconvenience. I spent the day ripping out Jim's old cabinets, letting the physical work burn off my frustration. There's something therapeutic about demolition when your life feels like it's falling apart anyway. Every swing of the sledgehammer was another problem I couldn't solve, another question I couldn't ask, another change I couldn't control. By 5 o'clock, I'd made good progress and worked up a decent sweat. Jim inspected the work and nodded approvingly. You do good work, Dave. Honest work. That's rare these days. Honest work. Yeah, that was me. Honest Dave, with his honest job and his honest marriage to a woman who couldn't look him in the eye anymore. I wondered what the opposite of honest work was, and whether it paid better. The drive home took me past Celia's office. Her car wasn't in the parking lot, but then again, she'd said she was having dinner with the girls. I almost kept driving, but something made me turn into the lot anyway. Through the big windows, I could see the office was mostly dark, except for one light in the back. Probably the cleaning crew. But as I sat there, feeling like a stalker in my own marriage, I saw movement. 2 figures in the conference room, close together, looking at something on a laptop. One of them was definitely Celia. The other was a man I didn't recognize. Tall, athletic build, expensive suit. They were standing close enough that their shoulders touched, and as I watched, he put his hand on her back in a way that was definitely not professional. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. Part of me wanted to march in there and demand an explanation. The bigger part of me was terrified of what that explanation might be. Instead, I drove home to find Lisa's boyfriend grilling steaks on my back deck while her kids played in my yard, and Lisa herself lounged in my wife's favorite chair, painting her nails and talking loudly on the phone about someone named Trevor who was absolutely divine, and so much better than the last one. Hey, Dave! The boyfriend, I still didn't know his name, waved a spatula at me. Hope you don't mind. Lisa wanted to cook for everyone. Family dinner, you know. Family dinner, in my backyard, with my grill, while my wife was having dinner with someone else. Sure, I said. Why not? The family dinner lasted until nearly midnight. Lisa's kids ran wild through my house while she and her boyfriend, whose name turned out to be Brad, made themselves completely at home. Brad helped himself to my beer, my premium steaks, and my satellite TV, settling in to watch the game like he'd been living here for years instead of days. You've got a great setup here, Dave, he said during a commercial break. Mind if I move my weights into the garage? I like to get my workout in early and hotel gyms are trash. Your weights? Yeah, I've got a full set in the truck. Didn't want to leave them at Lisa's old place. Her ex was being a real dick about the property division. Of course he was. I was starting to understand why Lisa had burned through 2 marriages. She had a talent for making herself at home in other people's lives. Celia rolled in around 12:30, smelling like wine and that same expensive cologne. She barely glanced at the disaster that used to be our living room. Toys everywhere, empty beer bottles. Brad passed out on my couch with the TV still blaring. How was dinner? I asked. Fine. Good. We talked about the new listings. She kicked off her heels and headed for the stairs without making eye contact. I'm exhausted. Don't wake me up when you come to bed. I wanted to ask about the man in her office, about the hand on her back, about why she couldn't look at me anymore. Instead, I spent an hour cleaning up after people I'd never invited into my home, listening to Brad snore on my furniture. The next morning brought new developments. Lisa had apparently decided that temporary meant indefinite, and she was making improvements to my house to suit her needs. "I moved some of your tools out of the garage," she announced over breakfast. "Brad needs space for his equipment, and honestly, Dave, you had way too much junk in there anyway." My tools. The equipment I used to make a living, carefully organized in a system I'd developed over 15 years of professional contracting, now stacked in my driveway like a yard sale. "Those tools aren't junk, Lisa. They're how I pay for this house that you're currently living in for free." "Don't be so sensitive. Brad's going to help organize everything better. He's got a real eye for efficiency." Brad, who was currently doing bicep curls with my weights in my garage, grunted agreement. "Yeah, man, you've got some quality stuff here. Mind if I borrow your circular saw? I want to build Lisa a proper vanity for the guest room." "Build Lisa a vanity? In my guest room?" "Just temporary until we find our own place." Lisa waved dismissively. "Brad's really handy. You should see what he did with my last apartment." The last apartment that she'd apparently lost in her recent breakup, along with whatever else had necessitated this extended stay in my house. Celia breezed through the kitchen, grabbing coffee and her purse. "I'll be late tonight. Big client meeting." "Another dinner with the girls?" She paused, and for a second, I thought she might actually answer honestly. "Something like that." After she left, I spent the morning moving my tools back into the garage and explaining to Brad why he couldn't reorganize my workspace. He took it well enough, but I could see Lisa watching from the kitchen window, her expression suggesting this was somehow my fault. The afternoon brought a call from Mike. "Hey, Dave, we might need to postpone poker night." "Why? What's wrong?" "Jenny ran into Celia at lunch today, with some guy. They looked close." My stomach dropped. "Close how?" "Close like maybe you should know about it." Jenny didn't want to say anything, but she thought you should hear it from a friend. Jenny was good people. She and Mike had been married almost as long as Celia and I, but they still acted like they enjoyed each other's company. They held hands at movies and laughed at each other's jokes, and generally made the rest of us feel like we were doing marriage wrong. What did she see exactly? They were at that new place downtown, expensive. He was paying, they were sitting close, and when they left, he had his hand on her back. Jenny said it didn't look like business. The same hand placement I'd seen through the office window. My wife was having an affair, and apparently, half the town knew about it before I did. "You want to talk about it?" "Not much to talk about yet, but thanks for the heads up." "Dave? Whatever's going on, you've got friends. Don't forget that." After Mike hung up, I sat in my truck outside the job site and tried to figure out what I was supposed to do next. Confront Celia? Hire a private investigator? Pretend I didn't know and hope it went away? My phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. "This is Trevor. Celia gave me your number. We should meet." Trevor. The name Lisa had mentioned on the phone. The name that was absolutely divine and so much better than the last one. I stared at the message for a long time before typing back, "Who is this?" Celia's business partner. "We need to discuss some things about her future." "And yours?" "Business partner. Right. The kind of business that required late-night dinners and hands-on backs and expensive cologne." "What kind of things?" "The kind better discussed in person. Brewski's Bar, 7 p.m. tonight. Come alone." Brewski's was a dive bar on the wrong side of town, the kind of place where people went to have conversations they didn't want overheard. I'd been there exactly once, for a co-worker's bachelor party, and remembered it being dark, loud, and anonymous. Perfect for whatever this Trevor wanted to discuss about my wife's future, and mine. I got home at 6 to find my garage had been converted into Brad's personal gym. My workbench was pushed against the wall, covered with protein powder containers and workout magazines. Brad himself was doing deadlifts where I usually parked my truck. "Hope you don't mind, Dave. Lisa said you never use this space in the evenings anyway," Lisa said. Lisa, who'd been living in my house for less than a week, was now making decisions about how I used my own garage. "Actually, I do mind. This is where I work on projects and store my equipment." "Come on, man. Sharing is caring, right? Besides, Lisa's thinking this might be a longer-term arrangement. Her lawyer says the divorce settlement could take months." Longer-term arrangement. Months. My temporary house guests were planning to stay until Christmas, apparently, and nobody had bothered to ask what I thought about it. "We need to talk about expectations," I started, but Brad cut me off. "Totally agree. Lisa's got some ideas about improvements to the house. Nothing major, just some updates to make the space work better for everyone. Updates. To my house. To make it work better for people who didn't live here, didn't pay the mortgage, and apparently didn't think they needed permission to redecorate." I left without another word. If I stayed, I was going to say something I couldn't take back, and I needed to save my anger for Trevor. Brewski's was exactly as I remembered. Dim lighting, sticky floors, and the kind of clientele that minded their own business. I spotted Trevor immediately. He was the only guy in the place wearing a suit that cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. "Dave?" He stood when I approached, extending a manicured hand. "Trevor Morrison." "Thanks for coming." Trevor Morrison was everything I wasn't. Tall, polished, with the kind of confidence that came from never having to worry about money. His handshake was firm, his smile was perfect, and I hated him immediately. "So you're Celia's business partner?" "Among other things." He gestured to a booth in the back corner. "Drink? Beer? Whatever's cheap." He ordered something with a name I couldn't pronounce and got straight to the point. "Celia and I have been working together for about 6 months now. Professional relationship that's become more personal." At least he was direct about it. No pretense, no dancing around the truth. "How much more personal?" "Personal enough that she's planning to leave you. She wanted to handle this herself, but I thought you deserved to know what you're dealing with." "And what am I dealing with exactly?" Trevor leaned back, studying me like I was a problem he needed to solve. "A woman who's outgrown her current situation. Celia's ambitious, Dave. She's got plans, goals, a vision for her future. She needs a partner who can match that energy. And you think that's you?" "I know it is. I've got connections, resources, opportunities. I can give her the life she wants. The life she wants. Not the life we'd built together, not the home we'd shared, not the 12 years of marriage we'd invested in. The life she wants, which apparently didn't include me." "So why are we having this conversation? If she's leaving, she's leaving." "Because she's too nice to just walk away. She feels guilty about the house, the business, your feelings. She's trying to let you down easy, but it's not working for anyone. What do you suggest?" Trevor smiled, and I realized this whole meeting had been leading up to whatever he was about to propose. "Make it easy for her. File for divorce, agree to a clean split, and everyone moves on with their lives. No drama, no fighting, no messy court battles." "And if I don't?" "Then things get complicated. Celia knows things about your business, tax issues, permit problems, cash jobs that might interest the IRS. She doesn't want to use that information, but if you force her hand..." There it was, the threat wrapped in reasonable language. Agree to the divorce on their terms, or face financial ruin. "You're blackmailing me. I'm offering you a clean exit from a marriage that's already over. What you do with that offer is up to you." I finished my beer and stood up. "Tell Celia if she wants a divorce, she can ask for it herself, like an adult." "Dave." Trevor's voice stopped me at the door. "Don't make this harder than it has to be. You seem like a decent guy. Find someone who appreciates that." The drive home was a blur of anger and planning. Trevor thought he had me cornered, thought I'd roll over and accept whatever terms they dictated. He was about to learn that underestimating people was a dangerous habit. I pulled into my driveway to find all the lights on in my house and cars I didn't recognize parked on my lawn. Through the windows, I could see people moving around, lots of people, like Lisa was throwing a party, in my house, without asking. This was about to get very interesting. The party was in full swing when I walked through my own front door. Lisa had invited what looked like half the neighborhood, plus several people I'd never seen before. My living room was packed with strangers drinking my beer, eating food I hadn't bought, and treating my home like their personal entertainment venue. "Dave!" Lisa spotted me from across the room and waved like I was a guest at my own house. "Perfect timing!" "Come meet everyone." Everyone included her ex-husband's brother, 2 women from her yoga class, Brad's cousin and his girlfriend, and a handful of other people who looked at me with the polite disinterest reserved for someone's boring relative. "Lisa, what is this?" "Just a little get-together." I wanted to thank everyone who's been so supportive during my transition. Brad thought it would be nice to have it here since we have so much space. Space, in my house, for her party. To thank people for supporting her through a divorce that had somehow become my problem. "You didn't ask." "Oh, Dave, don't be such a stick in the mud. It's just a few friends having fun. Besides, Celia said it was fine." Celia, who wasn't here. Celia, who was probably having dinner with Trevor while her sister threw parties in our house. Celia, who'd given permission for something without bothering to mention it to the person who actually lived here. Where is Celia? Working late again. That woman is so dedicated. Lisa's laugh was too bright, too loud. She said to tell you not to wait up. Of course she did. I looked around at the chaos that used to be my orderly home. Someone had moved my furniture to make room for dancing. Someone else had set up a makeshift bar using my good whiskey. Brad was holding court by the fireplace, telling stories that involved a lot of gesturing and loud laughter. My phone rang. Mike. "Dave, what the hell is going on at your house?" Jenny can hear the music from 3 blocks away. Right. The neighbors. The same neighbors who'd been watching the drama unfold all week, who were probably already texting each other about the party at Dave's house that Dave didn't seem to know about. It's complicated. You need help? Not yet. But thanks. I hung up and made my way through my own house like a stranger, looking for some place quiet to think. The kitchen was full of people I didn't know making food with ingredients I hadn't bought. The backyard was occupied by smokers and couples looking for privacy. Even my garage had been claimed by a group playing beer pong on my workbench. The only refuge left was my bedroom, and I had to step over someone's passed-out friend to get to the stairs. Upstairs was quieter, but not empty. Lisa had given someone a tour of the house, and I found 2 couples exploring my personal space like it was a museum exhibit. "Excuse me," I said, and they scattered like teenagers caught somewhere they shouldn't be. I locked my bedroom door and sat on my bed, trying to process everything that had happened in the past week. My wife was having an affair. Her sister had moved in indefinitely and taken over my house. My marriage was apparently over, and I was the last person to know about it. The party downstairs was getting louder. Someone had found my sound system and cranked up music that made the windows vibrate. I could hear glass breaking, loud laughter, and what sounded like furniture being moved around. My phone buzzed. Text from Celia. "Staying at Jenny's tonight. Too tired to drive home. Jenny." Not Trevor, but Jenny. Either she was lying, or she was telling her friend about the affair, looking for support or advice or permission to blow up our marriage. Another text, this one from an unknown number. "Hope you're thinking about our conversation. Clock's ticking. Trevor." Checking in to see if his threats had worked, if I was ready to roll over and accept whatever terms they'd decided on. I was thinking about our conversation, all right, just not the way he'd intended. A crash from downstairs interrupted my planning. Something big had fallen over, followed by nervous laughter and someone saying, "Don't worry, I'll pay for it. That was it. I'd had enough. I unlocked my bedroom door and headed downstairs to find my coffee table overturned and my lamp in pieces on the floor. The person who'd promised to pay for it was already deep in conversation with someone else, the broken lamp apparently forgotten. "Party's over," I announced, but my voice was lost in the music and conversation. I walked to my sound system and pulled the plug. The sudden silence was deafening. "Party's over," I repeated, and this time everyone heard me. "Oh, come on, Dave," Lisa protested. "It's not even midnight." "It's my house, Lisa. My furniture, my beer, my sound system. And I didn't give permission for any of this." The room went awkwardly quiet. Strangers who'd been making themselves at home in my space suddenly remembered they didn't actually know me. "Everyone needs to leave. Now." "Dave, you're being ridiculous," Lisa said, but her friends were already looking for their coats and purses. "Am I?" "This is my house, Lisa. Not yours, not Brad's, not your friends. Mine. And I want everyone out." Brad stepped forward, trying to play peacemaker. "Hey man, no need to get hostile. We're all just having fun." "Fun, right? Clean up this mess and get out." "Look, Dave, I get that you're upset, but nothing. You've been here less than a week and you've taken over my garage, moved my tools, thrown parties in my house, and treated me like a guest in my own home. That stops now." The room was clearing out quickly. Nobody wanted to be part of whatever domestic drama was unfolding, and I didn't blame them. Lisa, however, wasn't backing down. "You can't just kick us out, Dave. We have nowhere else to go." "That's not my problem. Celia said—" "Celia isn't here. Celia is never here anymore. And when she is here, she acts like she'd rather be anywhere else. So don't tell me what Celia said." Brad put his arm around Lisa protectively. "You don't have to yell at her, man." "I'm not yelling. Yet. But I will be if you're not out of my house in the next 10 minutes. "This is crazy," Lisa said. "You're having some kind of breakdown." Maybe I was. Or maybe I was finally waking up. The last of the party guests filtered out, leaving just Lisa, Brad, and me in my destroyed living room. Broken glass, empty bottles, food ground into my carpet, furniture overturned and damaged. "Clean this up," I said. "Dave, clean this upper. Then pack your things and find somewhere else to stay. You can't just throw us out on the street. Watch me." Brad stepped closer, trying to intimidate me. He was bigger, younger, and probably stronger. But he was also living in my house rent-free and had just helped trash my property. "You need to calm down, Dave." "No, Brad. You need to understand something. This is my house. My name is on the deed, the mortgage, the insurance, and the utility bills. You are a guest here, and guests who throw unauthorized parties and break my furniture are no longer welcome." "Lisa's family, man. You can't just—" "Lisa's family to my wife, not to me, and my wife isn't here to vouch for her right now." Lisa's face crumpled. "Where are we supposed to go?" "That's something you should have figured out before you decided to redecorate my house and throw parties without asking. I'll call Celia. She'll straighten this out. Go ahead. Call her. Ask her to come home and deal with this. I'd love to see if she actually shows up." Lisa pulled out her phone, but after a few rings, it went to voicemail. She tried again with the same result. "She's probably asleep," she said weakly. "At Jenny's house, too tired to drive home after her business meeting." The way I said it made it clear I knew exactly what kind of business meeting it had been. Lisa's expression shifted from angry to uncomfortable. "Dave, I think maybe you're misunderstanding." "I'm not misunderstanding anything. I'm finally understanding everything." I looked around at the damage to my home, at these people who'd moved in and taken over like they had a right to be here. "You have until tomorrow morning to find somewhere else to stay. Clean up this mess, pack your things, and go." "And if we don't?" Brad asked. "Then I call the police and have you removed for trespassing." "You wouldn't." I met his eyes and let him see that I absolutely would. Try me. They spent the next hour cleaning up the party damage, working in sullen silence while I supervised. Lisa kept trying to call Celia, but my wife wasn't answering her phone for anyone. When they finished, the house looked better, but not good. My coffee table was still broken, my lamp was still destroyed, and there were stains on my carpet that might never come out. "We'll get a hotel for tonight," Lisa said finally. "But this isn't over, Dave. Celia's going to hear about this. I'm sure she will." After they left, I sat in my quiet, damaged house and waited for my wife to come home. She didn't. At 3 a.m, I got a text. "Heard you kicked Lisa out. We need to talk." Finally. After a week of avoiding me, avoiding conversations, avoiding our marriage, Celia was ready to talk. I texted back, "I'll be here." But I wouldn't be the same person she'd been avoiding. That Dave was done being understanding, done being patient, done being the only one trying to save a marriage that was already over. The new Dave had plans. Celia came home at noon the next day, walking into the house like she was entering a crime scene. She surveyed the lingering damage from Lisa's party, the broken furniture, the carpet stains, the general disorder that comes from strangers treating your home like a rental property. "Dave? Where are you?" I was in the kitchen, drinking coffee and reading the newspaper like it was any other Saturday morning, like I hadn't spent the night planning exactly what I was going to say to her. "Right here." She appeared in the doorway, still wearing yesterday's clothes, her makeup smudged and her hair disheveled. She looked like someone who'd had a long night, but not the kind of long night that involved sleeping at Jenny's house. "Lisa called me. She said you threw them out. I asked them to leave, after they threw a party in our house without permission and broke our furniture. They're family, Dave. They're your family. And you weren't here to deal with them." Celia poured herself coffee with shaking hands. She looked exhausted, guilty, and cornered, like someone who'd been caught in a lie and was trying to figure out how to explain it. "I was working. With Trevor." She froze, coffee mug halfway to her lips. "What?" "Trevor Morrison, your business partner, the one who thinks I should make our divorce easy for everyone." The color drained from her face. "You talked to Trevor?" "He called me. Wanted to discuss your future. And mine. Interesting conversation." Celia set down her mug and sank into a chair across from me. For the first time in months, she was actually looking at me instead of through me. "Dave, I can explain." "Can you?" "Because I'd love to hear the explanation for how my marriage ended and I was the last person to know about it." "It's not like that." "What's it like, Celia?" "Help me understand." She was quiet for a long time, staring at her hands, trying to find words for something that probably didn't have good words. "I've been unhappy," she said finally. "Unhappy with what?" "With this. With us. With my life." She gestured around the kitchen, encompassing our home, our marriage, our 12 years together. "I feel stuck, Dave. Like I'm living someone else's life." "Whose life are you living?" "The life I thought I wanted when I was 25. But I'm not 25 anymore, and I want different things now. Things like Trevor. Trevor understands my ambitions. He has connections, opportunities. He can help me build the kind of career I've always wanted. And I can't. You're a contractor, Dave. You build kitchens and fix bathrooms and come home covered in sawdust. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's not the life I want anymore." There it was. The truth I'd been avoiding for months. My wife was ashamed of me, ashamed of my work, ashamed of the life we'd built together. "So you decided to trade up?" "It's not about trading up. It's about finding someone who shares my goals." "Goals like cheating on your husband?" "I never meant for it to happen. Trevor and I were working together, spending time together, and things just developed. Things developed. That's one way to put it." "Dave, please, I know this is hard, but..." Hard? Celia, I've spent months watching you pull away from me, wondering what I did wrong, trying to figure out how to fix something I didn't even know was broken. And the whole time you were planning to leave me for someone with better connections. I wasn't planning anything. It just happened. Bullshit. Affairs don't just happen. They're choices. Every late night at the office, every dinner with the girls, every lie you told me, those were choices. She started crying, which might have worked 6 months ago when I still thought our marriage was worth saving. I never wanted to hurt you, but you did hurt me. You hurt me every day for months, and then you sent your boyfriend to threaten me into making your divorce easy. Trevor threatened you? He suggested I agree to a clean split or face some unpleasant consequences. Something about tax issues and permit problems that might interest the IRS. Celia's face went pale. I never told him to say that. But you told him about my business, about things that could be used against me. I was just venting, complaining about money being tight. I never thought he'd... You never thought he'd use information about your husband to pressure him into giving you what you want? Really? She was crying harder now, but I felt nothing. No sympathy, no desire to comfort her, no urge to make this easier for either of us. What do you want me to say, Dave? I want you to say you're leaving. I want you to pack your things and go live with Trevor and stop pretending this marriage means anything to you. Maybe we could try counseling. Work things out. Work what out? You're in love with someone else. You're ashamed of my job, my life, probably me. You've been lying to me for months and planning your exit strategy. What exactly would we work out in counseling? I don't know. Something. Anything. But she didn't sound like she believed it, and neither did I. Here's what's going to happen, I said. You're going to pack your things and move in with Trevor. I'm going to file for divorce, and we're going to split everything 50-50. No threats, no blackmail, no dragging this out. Dave, I'm not finished. Lisa and Brad are not welcome in this house. If you want to help your sister, you can do it from Trevor's place. And if either of you tries to use information about my business against me, I'll make sure everyone in town knows exactly how this marriage ended. You wouldn't try me. She stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time. Maybe she was. The Dave she'd married would have begged her to stay, would have promised to change, would have done anything to save their marriage. This Dave was done begging. I'll pack some things, she said quietly. Pack everything. I don't want any reminders. She went upstairs and I listened to her moving around our bedroom, opening drawers and closets, packing up 12 years of marriage into suitcases and boxes. My phone rang. Mike, how are you holding up? Better than expected. Jenny told me about Celia and that guy. I'm sorry, Dave. Don't be, I'm not. What are you going to do? Move on. Finally. When Celia came downstairs with her suitcases, she looked like she wanted to say something meaningful, something that would make this moment less ugly than it was. Dave, I really am sorry. I know you are, but that doesn't change anything. Will you be okay? I'll be fine. Better than fine. She hesitated at the door. Maybe we can be friends eventually. No, Celia. We can't. After she left, I sat in my quiet house and felt something I hadn't felt in months. Relief. The pretending was over. The uncertainty was over. The marriage was over. Now the real work could begin. I pulled out my phone and started making calls. First to a divorce attorney, then to an accountant, then to a few other people who might be interested in what I'd learned about Trevor Morrison's business practices. If Trevor wanted to play hardball, he was about to discover that small-town contractors knew things too. Things about building codes and safety violations and shortcuts that might interest people who cared about such things. By the time I was done, Trevor Morrison was going to wish he'd never heard my name. The game was just beginning. 3 weeks later, Trevor Morrison's world started falling apart. It began with a call from the city building inspector to his biggest client, asking some very specific questions about permits and safety codes on their luxury development project. Questions that suggested someone had provided detailed information about corner cutting and regulation violations. I know because Jim Patterson mentioned it over coffee while I worked on his kitchen renovation. Heard Morrison Development is having some trouble with the Riverside project, Jim said casually. Building inspector showed up unannounced, found all sorts of problems. Might shut the whole thing down. That's too bad, I replied, not looking up from the cabinet I was installing. Yeah, somebody must have tipped them off. Inspector knew exactly where to look, like he had inside information. Inside information. The kind a contractor might have if he'd driven by the site a few times and noticed things like improperly installed electrical work, substandard materials, and safety violations that could cost someone their license. The kind of information someone might share if they were feeling civic-minded about public safety. Must be embarrassing for Morrison, I said. Oh, it gets worse. Word is his investors are getting nervous. Nothing kills a development deal faster than regulatory problems. The Riverside project was Trevor's biggest contract, the one that was supposed to establish him as a major player in the local real estate market. The one he'd probably bragged to Celia about, promising her a future full of success and luxury. That future was looking less certain now. My phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. We need to talk. Trevor. Right on schedule. I texted back, Brewskis. 8 p.m. Come alone. This time, I got there first and claimed the same back booth we'd used before. Trevor arrived 20 minutes later, looking considerably less polished than during our first meeting. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his perfect hair was disheveled, and he had the hollow-eyed look of someone who hadn't been sleeping well. You son of a bitch, he said without preamble. Good evening to you too, Trevor. Drink? Cut the shit, Dave. I know you're behind the problems with my project. I don't know what you mean. The building inspector just happened to show up asking about specific code violations. He just happened to know exactly where to look for problems? That's not a coincidence. I took a sip of my beer and studied his face. He looked desperate, angry, and scared, exactly how I'd hoped he would look. Maybe someone was concerned about public safety. Public safety, my ass! This is about Celia. Is it? Because from where I'm sitting, this looks like the natural consequences of cutting corners and hoping nobody would notice. Those violations are minor, standard industry practices. Minor violations that could get someone killed if they caused a structural failure. Minor violations that could cost you your license if the right people found out about them. Trevor leaned across the table, trying to intimidate me the way he had 3 weeks ago. But the balance of power had shifted, and we both knew it. What do you want? I want you to understand something, Trevor. You made a mistake when you threatened me. You thought I was just some dumb contractor who'd roll over and let you take my wife and my dignity without a fight. So this is revenge. This is education. You're learning that actions have consequences. The building inspector is just the beginning, isn't it? I smiled and finished my beer. That depends on you. What do you mean? I mean you have a choice to make. You can keep pushing, keep threatening, keep trying to use information about my business against me. Or you can back off, treat me with respect, and hope I don't share any more of my concerns about public safety with the appropriate authorities. You're blackmailing me. I'm offering you a clean exit from a situation that could get much worse. Sound familiar? Trevor's face went red. You bastard. Careful, Trevor. You're in public, and you look like you're about to lose your temper. That wouldn't be good for your professional image. He sat back, trying to regain his composure. What do you want? I want you to leave me alone. No more threats, no more pressure tactics, no more using my wife to get information about my business. Handle your relationship with Celia like adults, and I'll handle my divorce like an adult. And if I don't, then you'll discover that I know a lot more about your business practices than building code violations. Things like tax irregularities, insurance fraud, and labor law violations that might interest people who investigate such things. Trevor's face went pale. You've been investigating me. I've been paying attention. Amazing what you can learn when you know where to look and who to ask. This is insane, all over a woman who doesn't want to be married to you anymore. This isn't about Celia, Trevor. This is about respect. You disrespected me, threatened me, and tried to intimidate me into accepting whatever terms you dictated. That was a mistake. So what happens now? Now you go home, call off any plans you had to make my life difficult, and focus on saving your business. Because from what I hear, you're going to need all your attention on that. Trevor stood up abruptly. This isn't over. Yes, it is. Unless you want to make it worse. After he left, I ordered another beer and considered my next moves. The building inspector was just the opening gambit. I had information about Trevor's business that could cause much more serious problems if he decided to escalate things, but I was hoping it wouldn't come to that. I wasn't interested in destroying him, just in making sure he understood that threatening me had been a bad decision. My phone rang. Celia. Dave, what did you do? I had a conversation with your boyfriend about mutual respect. Trevor says you're sabotaging his business. Trevor's business is sabotaging itself. I just pointed some people in the right direction. This is crazy, Dave. You can't just what? Defend myself when someone threatens me? Stand up for myself when someone tries to intimidate me into accepting terms I didn't agree to? He never threatened you. He told me I should agree to a clean divorce or face consequences involving tax issues and permit problems. What would you call that? Silence on the other end of the line. Celia, I don't want to hurt you, but I won't let you or Trevor use threats and intimidation to get what you want. Handle this divorce like adults, and everything will be fine. And if we don't, then Trevor's building inspector problems will seem minor compared to what comes next. I hung up and finished my beer, feeling better than I had in months. For the first time since this whole mess started, I was in control of my own life. The next morning brought news that Trevor's investors had pulled out of the Riverside project, citing regulatory concerns and questions about his business practices. The project was dead, and Trevor Morrison Development was facing bankruptcy. I felt a moment of sympathy for Celia, who'd hitched her wagon to a falling star. But only a moment. She'd made her choice, and now she was living with the consequences. Just like everyone else. My phone buzzed one final time. Text from Trevor. You win. Leave us alone, and I'll leave you alone. I deleted the message without responding. The conversation was over. 2 months later, my divorce was finalized with a fair 50-50 split and no drama from either side. Celia moved to another city with Trevor, who'd managed to salvage enough of his business to start over somewhere else. Lisa found her own place and stopped speaking to me entirely, which was fine by both of us. I kept my house, my business, and my self-respect. Most importantly, I learned something valuable. Sometimes the best way to end a game is to change the rules. And sometimes, the quiet contractor knows more than anyone expects.